Hi, everyone. This is a conversation about Black women being targeted, right? In the workplace, we see the numbers of layoffs that we're experiencing, being pushed out of the workforce in many instances. We're seeing the headlines, we're experiencing the fear, right? And even if you're not affected personally, I know like the vicarious effect has been really distressing for both of us. And so that is a topic of the conversation tonight. I have a wonderful guest with me, Dr. Kimani, co-founder, Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women. I'll pass it over to her to introduce herself.
I'm so happy to be here with my friend Marissa Price. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Kimani. If you don't know me already, I am a licensed clinical psychologist. I've been licensed for over 20 years. I'm a toxic job survivor. I recently did a video on my YouTube channel where I did like a high-level overview about my story as a toxic job survivor because I've talked about it tidbits, but I was like, you know what? I just want to just do a high-level overview for people who don't really know my story. So I just posted that recently. But yes, I am a toxic job survivor. And so I've resigned from a toxic job for about 3 years. And it's so amazing to see how far I've come within 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
That now I've left the toxic job, I got a YouTube channel, and I am helping to liberate so many Black women from toxic jobs. So I'm on the other side. I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. And I really stress trying to show Black women that we have options even though we may have had a toxic job experience, there is a way out. And I know that this is a very scary time for us as Black women.
Mm-hmm.
And Marissa and I are really here to hold space for us as Black women so we know we're not alone, that we have options. And even if it feels like this is a very scary time and you may not want to make a job move right now, we understand that. But the importance of thinking about where are the spaces where you can feel supported and when can you start maybe start making plans, right? So even if you don't want to leave a job immediately, maybe start making plans so we can leave like years maybe down the line, or maybe a year
Mm-hmm.
down the line, or months down the line. But the importance of starting to plan because that helps with your mental health as well, knowing that there's a way out.
Ooh, that is
Oh,
so true.
and also my YouTube channel, I forgot to say that.
Mm-hmm.
My YouTube channel is Lifting as We Climb Consulting Wellness Services.
Yes, yes. And you mentioned being a toxic job survivor,
Hmm.
which is, ooh, that term, when you first stated that, I was like, ooh, because that's what it feels like, right? Being in a highly traumatic work environment, having to like rebuild your sense of
Hmm.
self. I want to ask, like, how you came up with that term and what that
You know
signifies
what?
to you as you shared your story.
That's a really good question. I think that as I was going through it, I was just doing a lot of reading and trying to have a better understanding of what I was going through at the time and just being in therapy. And I think my therapist, who's a Black woman, was telling me about different resources available. And I started becoming aware of like Minda Harts and Dr. Kira Yazid and reading their work. So I don't know if they started talking about toxic job survivor. I'm not quite sure where I learned of the term. I know I didn't create the term, but it really resonated with me and just learning about giving a word to my
Mm-hmm.
experience and even learning about pets a threat. So learning about, wow,
Yeah.
that is exactly what I was experiencing. And that's why I wanted to do that
Mm-hmm.
video on my YouTube channel because I talked about pets a threat. And when I learned about pets a threat, I was able to give a word to what I was experiencing. And so it was like, oh, that makes sense because I got a
Mm-hmm.
sense that that was what was happening to me, but I didn't have a word for it. And so when many Black women hear about pets a threat and they're like, oh my God, that's exactly what I experienced. And for anybody who's not familiar with Pets a Threat, let me just say what it is. So Pets a Threat was created by three Black women researchers, Dr. Juanita Johnson Bailey, Dr. Keisha Thomas, Dr. Rosemary Phelps. Pet the Threat deals with when a Black woman comes in the workplace or she's sought out in the workplace because of her outstanding work abilities or her talents or her gifts, and they love her. She's doing a fantastic job. They love her. Oh, she's wonderful. Oh, we love Marissa. She's so great. Oh my God. So, Marissa, you, me, doing all these wonderful things, getting all these accolades. And so you're the pet, okay? But then you start outshining other people in the workplace. And then there's a shift. in terms of how you're seen and treated as if like you're a threat. And at that point, people try to kind of shift you out, or they try to do things, demean you, and make you feel like you're the problem. But then just a few minutes ago, or not that long ago, you were the pet. And so it could feel like this very disorienting kind of feeling like, wait a minute, what just happened? And it does not make logical sense. So when I was able to read about and learn about Pet the Threat, it was so validating. And so that's why I love talking about these issues on my YouTube channel, because it helps Black women feel validated, and it helps us know that we're not crazy. Like, oh my God, I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one. I thought I was the only one. And that sense of shame, right? The sense of shame that I thought that it was something wrong with me. I thought I was the problem. Now, self assessment is important, right? We always need to self assess when we're in situations. But when you're able to self assess, when you're in therapy, when doing all these things, you're like, wait a minute, I did not do these things that these people are making me think that I did, right? When they start gaslighting you, there's something else going on here. There's some other dynamic going on here. When you're able to put a name to the dynamic that you're experiencing, it is it is so empowering. And then you're able to kind of take a step back and say, oh, this is this toxic system that is making me question my worth.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. And I just want to give you your flowers, right? Because your channel has really saved lives. Like I have to say that.
Well,
I
thank
was
you,
in,
Marissa.
as I've shared, yeah, as I've shared before, like I was in depression, right? So I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder in the job that I was in, and I didn't see a way out. And then I was guided, I think, divinely to Dr. Kimani's channel, and just being in the chat and hearing other Black women share their stories globally about what we were experiencing. And so that
Yeah.
allowed me, as you said, to like, oh, it's the system, it's not me.
Hmm.
Right. And so
Yeah.
all that shame that I had internalized started to disintegrate just by
Yeah.
being in that space. That's
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And I appreciate you sharing that. And also just recognizing that by me sharing my story, right? Like me getting on YouTube and sharing my story, and it was my way of starting my healing, because I felt so not only traumatized, I felt dehumanized, and I felt humiliated, and I felt that they were trying to humiliate me, right? And so my response to that was, you're not going to humiliate me. I'm going to call you out about what you did to me, because you're doing something to me, right? So that was my response to that. And as I did that, that's when more Black women started reaching out to me like, wait a minute, this is happening to me. This is happening to me. And I thought this was going to be just a short term thing. I thought I was going to do a series on workplace bullying for a
Hmm.
few, thing. I thought I was gonna do like a 4-part series or something about workplace bullying.
Yeah.
And now it's
Hmm.
3 years later, and I'm still
Hmm.
talking, and I'm still interviewing other Black women, because I want Black women to see so many instances. First of all, how common it is for Black women to have toxic work
Yes.
experiences.
Hmm.
And I want them to see so many examples of Black women being able to pivot out of toxic jobs, being able to replace their income, and to live a much better life. So that's why I love interviewing so many Black women every Sunday on my YouTube channel, interviewing a different Black woman about her life experiences and showing us that there's a different way, again, about options. The other thing that I want to say is, I am so filled with joy that I have met so many beautiful, brilliant Black women like you, Marissa, through this journey. I would have never
Hmm.
met you. I would have never met Colette. I would have
That's true.
never met
Yeah.
Stephanie. I would have never met all these amazing Black women. I would have never created a community of so many powerful Black women if I didn't share my story. So if we think about the power of testimony and how this has started with my own healing, that now I have met so many Black women who are all coming together for healing. And I think that speaks to how it's so important for us as Black women to open up and share about our pain when we've been hurt, when we've been done wrong. And we do that, we're able to build community and find people who are there to support us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, that's so important. I want to read a comment from Diane. Hello. Hello, ladies. I'm
Hello
retired, but
there.
always share you positive energy with other women. I know that's still in the workplace of toxicity. Thank you for
Yeah.
this. Yeah. Ooh, and how it drains your spirit,
Ooh,
right?
yes,
Being in these
yes.
toxic environments. And as we're experiencing now, right, over 300,000 Black women
Mm.
have exited. I've seen that language a lot. The workforce being pushed out, being targeted.
And that's a
Um,
nice way, right? Exited. That
yeah,
sounds very
yeah.
sterile,
Uh-huh.
exited,
Uh-huh.
not like
Yes.
pushed out, not like,
Yeah, because
being just shut out without nobody telling you, no warning. It's traumatizing. It's traumatizing
hmm
that stuff is happening.
I want to
Yeah.
talk about that, the trauma, right?
Mhm.
Of having something that we are told, like federal jobs, right, that are supposed to
Mhm.
be
The
stable.
good job, the good job.
Yes, having the rug pulled out right from under
Mhm.
us, right? And having to
Mhm.
try to like put the pieces together, identify our
Mhm.
skill sets if we're choosing to pivot into entrepreneurship, trying to get our resume
Mhm.
together if we're going to apply to another job. Can you
Mhm.
talk about like the trauma of that, the sudden impact of having your
Yeah.
job just taken from you?
Yeah, well, if you think about just basic needs, we think about safety and stability. So if you think
Hmm.
about that, that has been shattered. So if you think about your core sense of survival has been shattered. So now you have this sense of, oh my God, I am now questioning my whole sense of survival. I don't know how I'm going to survive. I don't know how I'm going to eat, where I'm going to, about how am I going to survive? What is this going to look like for me and my family? So you've shattered that whole sense of security and that whole sense of also a sense of identity for many Black women as well. So I've done some YouTube videos about that as well, about sometimes our identity becomes fused with our job title. So now if you think about the survival, the safety issue, but now our sense of identity has been kind of wrapped into the job title too. And then if you've been working at a job for so long, there's even a question of, well, what am I going to do now? How am I going to find another
Yes.
job? What am I
Hmm.
going to do? Like I'm not able to do anything else. So you become uh, kind of like in this tunnel of thinking that that job that
Hmm.
you are working is the only possible way that you could have income. So now
Yes.
it fuels that sense of that the helplessness and hopelessness. And then we think about the issues of depression and anxiety. So it's very important for us as Black women to recognize that the experiences that we're having, it is terrifying. And then we think about it's the individual traumas that we're experiencing, right? The job loss, but also it's the vicarious traumatization. So it's the
Yes.
individual trauma that's happened to us, but hearing
Yes.
about the ongoing job loss of all of our sisters, ongoing, right? And then we hear about the attacks of Black women, like the degrad- degradation
Hmm.
of Black women. It's just like
Yeah.
ongoing. And so when you see that, what is the message that sends about us as Black women? That we are not, you think about Malcolm X, right? The most disrespected woman in America is
Mhm.
the Black woman. It is being
Yeah.
reinforced right now. So we feel we are totally unprotected. We feel like who's looking out for us? And we feel like we're targets, that we are under attack. And in many ways, we are. So we have all these layers of trauma which might exacerbate if we have our own individual traumas. So now we think about all these issues that are being impacted. And if we think about now, if you've lost your job, now it's going to
Hmm.
impact, do I now have access to therapy? Because if I lost my job, then does that mean I've lost my health insurance? Does that mean that I now can't have access to my previous therapist because I was paying through my health insurance? Like all of
Right.
these things are happening in terms of access now to treatment. So we have to think about what does this mean for us as a community, and what are the ways that, and we talked about this too, Marissa, what are the ways that we as a community need to really come together and uplift one another during these times, because we are really in a crisis time. We really have to pull together and uplift one another because a lot of us are struggling. And you and I have talked about also the level of
Mhm.
emotional fatigue that you and I
Mhm.
have talked about experiencing, the heaviness that's going
Mhm.
on in the world, right? So just the constant confusion and chaos. So we're hearing about all the job losses and then all the political unrest and all the other nonsense going on in the world. It's nonstop. So you can't really fully rest. You can't fully relax. So everybody, like we're all in this sense of like heightened awareness, like this sense of like hypervigilance all the time.
Mhm. Mhm. I want to talk about the impact to our nervous systems,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
As you mentioned, like in the midst of all this trauma that we're experiencing, and again, it doesn't have to be us that's affected individually.
mhm,
We experience vicarious trauma when we see other
right.
people experiencing trauma, right? It does
Particularly people
something
who look
to
like
us,
us.
harms us.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And so, can you speak to like the nervous system
Mhm.
impacts of what we're experiencing? Anything that you want to share around that?
Yeah, so we're like in this fight, flight, or freeze mode all the time, right? So that hyper arousal, right? So when you like it's the hyper arousal, so you think about the stress hormones, your stress hormones are activated all the time, and that's not healthy. So if we think about like weathering, so that stress, weathering is what happens is when our organs are aging at a faster rate. And there's been a lot of research talking about that as Black women, we're now dying at earlier ages. We're developing cardiovascular diseases earlier. So I'm very concerned about the implications of this current time in terms of
Mhm.
our not only our physical health, our the mental health implications of this current time on us and ways that we as Black people, as Black women, really need to lean into our protective factors. So, community, right? That's a protective factor. Spirituality, that's a protective factor. Ways that we attend to our wellness, working out, um, meditation, prayer. What are the things that we're doing for ourselves and really being intentional about our well gardening? What are we doing to be mindful and intentional about our wellness? Because all of these are all threats against our psyche right now.
Absolutely. Yes. And I see a comment here, Rip the mask off. Thank you. And it comes in stages: love, compliment, bombing, resentment of qualities and work ethics you possess, steady diet of criticism and sabotage, spiking
Mm,
attacks, reprobated, then discarded. Thank you
mhm,
for laying this out, right? Because
mhm,
I think it's so
mhm.
helpful for us to be able to see a pattern. I do want
Yeah,
to ask, both of us had time to plan our exits from
yeah.
toxic jobs, right? We
Mhm,
had the
mhm.
benefit of doing that. For Black
True.
women who may have been in a toxic job already, and then plus the rug is ripped out from underneath, if you're experiencing a layoff,
Mhm,
being pushed out, a lot of our positions have been eliminated. What
mhm.
is the, I guess, the greater impact to that when you don't have time to plan necessarily?
What's the shock? It's the shock of
Hmm.
it, right? So it's kind of like, oh my God, like oh my God, what's happening? So you're trying to readjust to what's happening, and then you don't even have an opportunity to plan. So my hope is for all of us as Black women, when we see, if you're working in a so-called traditional job, when we see what's happening right now, that we're all becoming a little bit more aware of the job market is very unstable right now. That we're all, if you're working a traditional job, that we're all, if you're in the traditional job, that you're becoming more aware of, I need to make sure that I am getting some backup plans in order. I'm making sure that I'm aware of where my money is. I'm making sure that I'm looking at my finances. I'm making sure that I have a budget in place, like that we're making plans, right? So the saying, I'm going to stay ready so I don't have to get ready. So as Black
Hmm.
women, that we are taking these steps because we're seeing what's happening to our sisters, right? And not
Hmm.
to try to go into panic mode, right? My hope is that we're going to be a little bit more proactive as we're seeing what's happening, right? Particularly if we're seeing maybe in our job, because sometimes there's like a series of layoffs, right? So if we see like there's been one round of layoffs, particularly during those times, like
Hmm.
start doing some preparations, right? Start doing some
Hmm.
preparation. If there's already been a round of layoffs at your job, yes, pray and hope that you don't, you're not in the next round. And start doing some preparations, right? Start doing that financial preparation, start doing some other things in preparation for what may happen. Pray, yes, but also do
Hmm.
some other preparations as well.
Yes, yes. And speaking of preparation, I want to talk about the emergency money plans masterclass,
Hmm.
which you'll be co-hosting with Dr. Roche coming up
Hmm.
October 2nd.
Hmm. Hmm.
What inspired you? I know that we've talked about this behind the scenes, but
Yeah.
um, I can imagine like the headlines, right, of what
Yeah.
we're seeing, the different things that we hear from people that we work with about
Hmm.
being pushed out of the workforce. But
Hmm.
just what inspired you to create this masterclass and offer it during this time?
Yeah, I have just felt so helpless about hearing about Black women losing their jobs. And some of my clients have lost, my therapy clients have lost their jobs. And just, just hearing about it and just thinking, what can I do to support Black women right now? And just feeling like I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. And I was kind of milling over, milling over, milling over. And one day I was in my YouTube Success Society class with Stephanie Perry, and the thought just came to my head. And I said, wait a minute, what about some type of masterclass that will help Black women who've lost their jobs, or maybe they think that they're about to lose their jobs, or just for Black women just to be aware of how to get their money together during these times, because these
Mhm.
some crazy times. What about something like that? If I partner with Dr. Roche, who's a financial psychologist, what about something like that? So I told it to the YouTube Success Society group and Stephanie, and they were like, yeah, that's a great idea. And I was like, okay. And Marissa, I'm telling you, this was like boom, 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 boom. Because usually when you and I do something together, or Roche and I do something together, this is months
Mhm.
of planning, right?
Yes,
So
planning.
if we
Mhm.
launch something, this is months of planning. This
Mhm.
was like a few weeks ago. This is a few weeks ago that I said this to the group. This is even
Mhm.
before I asked Roche. So this is before I asked Roche, right? Dr. Roche. So after
Yeah.
that, I contacted Dr. Roche. I said, I got an idea. I want to share this with you. Let me know what you think. And she was on board. She's like, girl, let's do it. Right. So we
Mhm.
came up with it. And this has been like a very kind of like labor of love. Like, let's do this, let's do this, do this. So we came together and we decided to do this masterclass to really help Black women, again, Black women who've lost their jobs, Black women who kind of foresee that they may lose their jobs in light of the unstable job market. And again, this is just for any Black women, really, who
Mhm.
want to get an understanding of some things they can do in terms of finances, to kind of get an understanding of if things get slim, right? If things
Right.
get scary in terms of this financial market, these are some of the things that they can do to really protect themselves. So that's how the emergency money tips masterclass came to be. And again, Dr. Roche, I partner with her already. We've done like 4 financial masterclasses. So this one just came to be, right? And this one is priced much lower than the financial masterclass because we want
Yes.
to make it accessible to many Black women. So it's October 2nd. It's 2 hours. It's Zoom webinar,
Mhm.
so no participants will be seen on camera. Okay. Only Dr. Roche and I will be on camera. So it's 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, and 4 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay.
And
And the
participants
replay will
get the
be
live
available.
and the replay.
Mhm. Okay. Yes. Yes. So if you can't make it live, I think that's a great opportunity still to watch the replay, right? Because I
Hmm.
still, so I worked as Dr. Kimani's virtual assistant. I'll still, from time to time, go back and watch the replay, right? Just to get soak up the information in the masterclass. And we've talked about that before, like during this time, people
Hmm.
kind of seeing what we're going through collectively as a way to exploit.
Hmm.
And so I think like bringing in the expertise of
Hmm.
both you, right, and Dr. O'Shea
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
so important as licensed clinical psychologist, Dr. O'Shea being a financial psychologist. Can
Hmm.
you talk about that? Like what sets this apart? Like given both of your backgrounds, it being like a
Hmm.
safe, private space
Hmm.
to
For
soak up
Black women.
information, right, for Black women to make your exit plan. And
Yeah.
anything else that kind of sets apart this masterclass from other things that we may be seeing out there?
Absolutely. Well, first, we're two licensed clinical psychologists who are Black women. That's very rare that you're going to have access to both of us. The other
Yeah.
part is that I'm a toxic job survivor, but she is a financial psychologist. So she is the financial psychologist who I work with to get my exit plan together. So I know she knows what she's talking about. Okay. So she helped me
Mhm.
get out. And she really is on top of her game. So she talks about money in a way that is easy to digest, it's easy to understand. I am a person who has money trauma, money issues, and she breaks it down in a way that you're able to easily understand. And I am a person who has avoided money. I've avoided
Mhm.
talking, looking at money, but she breaks it down in a way so that you can look at your money and come up with a money plan. So sometimes people talk about money and it's like, it's way up here, or you're like, what they talking about? Or it could be like a
Mhm.
chastising kind of way or whatever.
Yes.
She actually makes it fun and funny, which is hard to believe,
Mhm.
but she does, right? And so sometimes we have music and we laugh or whatever, but it really is a way for you to have an actual money plan. It's not just somebody talking at you and look up this and look up that. It's actually you coming in, you might feel like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. But by the time you leave, that 2 hours later, you will have an emergency money tips plan. You will have a plan of what you need to do. So you will feel a little bit more secure after you leave the masterclass. So that's what's different because this is specifically tailored for Black women, and you'll be only with other Black women, and it's private, so nobody will know you're there.
Mhm. And we talked about kind of feeling like you're losing control, especially if your
Hmm.
identity has been tied to your job so
Yeah,
closely, which both of us talk about.
yeah.
Can you talk about the steps that you may be walking through in the masterclass, how you're creating this safe place for us to be able to gain control over something that feels out of our control so often? Money,
Hmm.
right? Taking it
Hmm.
control back, realizing that you have the power in safe community to build your financial plan. Anything that
Hmm.
you want to share around that, how this masterclass can help you regain that sense of control that you feel that maybe you lost with a sudden layoff, with a sudden elimination of position?
Yeah. So when you think about like a job layoff, like you have no control over that, right? But when you
Hmm.
come to the master class, you have control. Number one, that you've signed up for it, so you have control over that. You have control over something that maybe you've avoided in the past. You may have avoided looking at your money. You may have avoided, looking at your expenses. You may have avoided coming up with a budget. You may have avoided those things, but now you're taking control over these things. So you may have avoided those things in the past, but now you are being intentional with coming up with a plan. And you're looking at the resources that are available that Dr. Roche is going to be sharing, and you're actually coming up with a plan that works best for you. So you're taking charge, right? So these things may have
Hmm.
happened to you, but now you're taking charge of what needs to happen now going forward.
Absolutely. I want to read a comment here. Thank you so much. Multifaceted me with SFB. Often women believe, though they see the layoffs, that it won't happen to them. Also,
Hmm.
women who have time in and can retire don't and are forced out and lose their
Mm,
pension. Go out on your
mm.
own terms.
Oh, I
Anything that you want
like
to share
that.
around this? The
Oh, I
power,
like that.
again,
Yeah.
to take control over your financial
Yes.
plan. Mm-hmm.
Go out on your own plans. Yeah. Go out on your own terms. Yeah. So true. So true. So true. And the thing about it too is sometimes we can sense that something is about to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had a call with a Black woman today, and she was saying that she knew years before she was going to get laid off. She knew she should have left the job years before she got laid off, right?
Mm-hmm.
She knew it, but she still stayed, right? Because of loyalty to the job, loyalty to the mission of the job. And I just want us as Black women to really pay attention to our gut, that intuition. Like when a place is not meant for us, just let us pay attention to that and let us honor ourselves and our
Mm-hmm.
families more than a job so called mission. Okay. That is more important
Yes.
than a job mission. And let us figure out what we need to do in terms of planning so that we can still honor ourselves and our families more than a job mission, right? So the planning is going to take time, right? Like I said, and I stress this all the time. I never tell a black woman, girl, just leave that job, everything going to be okay. I never say that unless you're experiencing immediate danger physically, psychologically, you get really sick, you're about to have a nervous breakdown, go. But if not, start planning, right? So the Job Liberation Summit, the master classes, these are all ways to plan, okay? So my hope is that we start planning for things so that if we see a layoff is coming, right? You see the wave is coming, okay, start making your plans. Start making your plans, okay? If you've already been caught up in the layoff, okay, you can still make plans before you get caught up in, oh my God, I'm so far behind. Now I'm in a deep, deep, deep hole, right? We want to help you before you get into this deep, deep, deep financial hole. That's what we're trying to help you.
Hmm. Hmm. I do want to share the landing page
Hmm.
for the registration of the masterclass, because I think this is so beneficial, right? To have these scripts. This really stood out to me when you sent me the information, right? Scripts for negotiating with
Hmm.
different companies, landlords, creditors, utility companies, things that we really need in times of
Hmm.
crisis. As you mentioned, this is a crisis for so many of us
Yes.
that we're experiencing, and
Yes.
being able
And
to
can I say
create
something too,
that
Marissa?
plan.
Yeah,
Hmm.
can I say something, Sharika? Like, I just want to say that I'm not discounting that if you lost a job, that it is scary and it's bad, right? I'm not discounting that, right? In that type of situation, we're trying to help you so you don't go into a deeper financial hole, right? So recognize that it may feel very scary, right? But there's a way so you don't go into a deeper financial hole.
Yeah. Hmm. And I think remaining proactive, as we talked
Hmm.
about earlier, versus waiting until things get really, really, really bad, right?
Yes.
Building your plan, reaching out to people, being proactive as you're planning, and doing that in a safe space, a
Hmm.
private space, not going to be shown on camera, right? Where you can
Hmm.
change your name after entering the webinar. I think that's so
Hmm.
beneficial during these times as we see, too, surveillance increasing,
Yes.
targeted towards Black women in jobs, right? And
Hmm.
so these things are very real.
Hmm.
Yes. Um, so finding that immediate financial clarity, right, I think is so important. And again, having two licensed clinical psychologists walking you
Hmm.
through this, having that level of like psychological safety when it
Hmm.
comes to these issues. Do you want to speak anything about that? Right?
Well, yeah,
Feeling like
because
you
if
can
you don't,
ask questions.
absolutely right. And if you don't feel safe and welcome, you kind of shut down, you can't receive the information, right?
Hmm.
But just
Hmm.
knowing that you're in a space with other Black women who are accepting, who are welcoming, and who really want you to win. Like Dr. Roche and I really want Black women to win. We really want all of us to win. And we really are doing this because we love Black women. We love Black women and we want to support Black women in whatever way we can. I mean, the fact that we were able to, well, I had the idea and I reached out to her and we were able to pull this together as fast as
Hmm.
we did, like this is evidence that we are really committed to helping Black women during this time because this is a way for us to channel the feelings that we had of what do we do to help our sisters right now. And this is the way that we're coming together to help our sisters.
Hmm. Hmm. I think that's so important, right? Because this entire thing is so overwhelming. Again, we're seeing all the headlines. We're
Hmm.
seeing people be impacted in our lives. Those of us who have clients who have been impacted by this,
Hmm.
like it's touching so close to home. And I want to talk
Hmm.
about that. Like this feels very personal.
Hmm.
And
It
something that
does.
you mentioned, like we are being targeted, right?
Yeah.
And I've heard people like try to push back against that. I think the statistics speak for themselves,
Hmm.
right? We see over
Absolutely.
300,000 Black women just in the course of this year
A few
experiencing
months.
layoffs, being
Yeah.
pushed out.
Yeah.
Can you talk about like the personal aspect? This feels very targeted
Well,
and how
yeah,
that
like
may
I
be
said, like
impacting
I
us as
know,
well.
like it's
Hmm.
my clients. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like
Hmm.
I remember one time I was in a session, and my client was getting an email from her job, and it was from Human Resources, and they said, "We want to meet with you later today." And she was like, "Oh my God, I think I'm going to get laid off today."
Wow.
So it's like in real time that we're hearing and we're seeing about these things. So we probably all know of a Black woman or two or three or more who has been
Hmm.
directly impacted by these layoffs. So it's impacting all of us directly and or
It is.
vicariously.
Hmm. It is.
Yeah.
I want to. I want to talk about this real quick. Options. We were just talking about this.
Yeah,
Having options is your power.
it absolutely
And just
is.
how can the masterclass be one of those options, right? Even if you haven't been
Mhm.
laid off yet, but you have that
Mhm.
sense, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
like leaning into your intuition around the headlines we're
Yes.
seeing, maybe your individual job environment. How can this be an option that you can utilize if you have to, even if right now you don't have to, but down
Mhm.
the line, since you have the replay, anything that you want to share
Mhm.
around that?
Yeah, because you need to know about how to be able to, if things go bad or go wrong down the line, if things go wrong, you would know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you will be prepared. If anything goes down, you will be prepared. So that is the benefit of knowing your financial options. And for us as Black people, I would just say, growing up, I wasn't taught a lot about finances. I really wasn't. Okay. And so I think it's very empowering for us as Black women to get a better handle of our finances and be proactive in knowing about our finances as well. So maybe if you're not in a dire situation financially, to know if you may be headed to a dire financial situation, what would you do to prevent yourself from going into a really deep financial hole? That is
Mm-hmm.
empowering to know that.
It is. It is. Yes. I'm going to read this comment. Today, a black nurse was pulled into the hallway, and when she came back in, she told her coworker they will need to meet with her by the end of the day. I'm so sick of what's going on. Yeah. So this is being sprung on us,
Mm,
as you just
mm,
mentioned with your client, like having human resources. Like I need to talk to you. Like
yeah,
it's being sprung on us. That level of nervous system
yeah,
activation, when you feel
yeah,
constantly on edge, you don't feel
yeah.
safe, and you're trying to plan, right? So I guess I want to ask like how the masterclass can assist with that. If you don't even have a safe place, maybe to sit like in a place, prepare your plan, prepare what may come ahead, to
Mm-hmm,
be in this private setting specifically for Black women to
mm-hmm.
address those fears.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to share?
Yeah. So when you're able to, number one, be amongst other Black women, okay, but also when you're able to be somewhere and you start planning, that's like a container of your anxiety, right? Because sometimes like you're thinking this and you're thinking this and you're thinking this, but once you have a plan, it's like a container. It's a container.
Wow.
So the hope is that that plan will help contain some of the anxiety that you might be experiencing right now.
Hmm. I love that. I'm just writing it down. Yes, that's so
Hmm.
important. A container for your anxiety because it can feel
Yeah.
like there's just no solid ground to stand on
Yeah, you're
during
like, what
these
am I doing?
times.
Like, what? This is happening. This is happening. I got this bill. I got that bill. And what am I going to do? And how am I going to pay this? And this is happening. It's all over the place. But
It's a
we
lot.
need to rein it in, right? Rein it
Hmm.
in. Like, let's look at the numbers. Let's put everything all together and let's come up with a clear plan.
Hmm. Hmm. And as you mentioned, like job loss on top of political unrest,
Oh,
right? All the things that we're seeing collectively, we're
mm-hmm.
experiencing at the same time. And it feels like I was just saying this to someone the other day, like a year's worth of headlines in a day or two now. Like that's a
And it's
level of
nonstop. And it's
madness.
nonstop.
It
Nonstop.
is.
Yeah.
It is. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Go to job fairs and no one is hiring. Yeah, as you mentioned, like the job market,
Mm-hmm.
what we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing, which is why we,
Mm-hmm.
with the summit, the Job Liberation Virtual Summit, try to provide multiple different options that you
Yes.
have, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
not just relying on jobs that we were
Mm-hmm.
told that were supposed to be so stable. in
Mm-hmm.
place that would be there forever that we could
Right.
rely on, we're seeing that
Right.
that's not true. And I
Right.
feel like that can create a level of shock to anything that you want to talk. I know that you already mentioned, but just
Well,
the
the thing
shock to
about
the
it,
system.
well, the shock to the
Hmm.
system, but it also goes against how many of us were raised.
Hmm.
Many of us were raised that you go to college, you get a degree, or you go to graduate school and get another degree, you get another degree, you get more certifications, and you get that good job, and then you stay there, and then you retire, and right. So it goes against how we were raised, and so it's like, wait a minute, like I did everything that I was supposed to do. I did
Yes.
everything. I did everything. So I did everything I was supposed to do, and this is the payoff. This is what happens to me,
Hmm.
right? And so it can
Hmm.
make you feel like disillusioned. It can make you feel
Yes.
like, wait a minute, this is the reward that I get. And so my hope is that at this point, if you feel like disillusioned, that this is the time to reevaluate, right? This is a time to reevaluate your life. Okay. So maybe it has not turned out in the way that you may have wanted, but maybe reevaluate, what is it now that you want for your life? And actually, I heard this woman say this. I was training a group of people yesterday on trauma, and she said, rejection is just redirection. I was like, okay, right? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is like a redirection, okay? So, which way now are you being redirected? And just like when the person said that maybe the jobs are not hiring, okay. So, we have to think about as Black people, just like we have always found a way. I want us to remember as Black people, we have always found a way. Okay. So, what are we going to start doing to find other ways to make money if these jobs are not hiring us? Because we have to find ways, just like our ancestors did, we have to find ways to still survive, even if these people are not giving us jobs.
Yes. Can you talk about that leading? Because I know that you talk about this on your channel so often,
Hmm.
with the different profiles, right, of Black women that you have highlighted on your channel.
Hmm. Hmm.
The importance of leaning into the power
Hmm.
of our ancestors, right?
Hmm.
The legacy that we come from, and being able to
Hmm.
pivot,
Hmm.
plan, look at our options, assess,
Hmm.
strategize
Hmm.
things that we have
Hmm.
had to do over centuries.
Hmm.
Anything that you want to speak about during this time and why that's so important to remember?
Well, I think that we have to look in history in terms of what we've done in terms of our communities and how we have really supported one another in terms of businesses and
Hmm.
really gone within and supported one another. But what has happened over time, and we've seen a lot of people talk about this, what's happened with integration is that we don't support each other with our businesses. And we go out, and that money goes out. It goes out of our communities. And been a lack of, I guess, respect or value of Black owned businesses. And so we have to reevaluate this. We really do. And my hope is that during this time, we are reevaluating ways that we may view Black owned businesses. Because if we look at, okay, if these jobs are not hiring us, well, then how are we going to survive as Black people? You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
We're going to
Hmm.
have to be doing things in terms of producing for ourselves. And as Black consumers, we're going to have to support these Black owned businesses. We're going to have to do that to survive as a people. But I think a
Hmm.
lot of that's going to have to also deal with, we're going to have to address those issues that are hindering us from supporting one another. So I think there's a lot of internalized oppression that we're going to have to really address as a community too, that prevent us from supporting one another. A lot of
Yes.
work needs to happen. Some post traumatic slave syndrome work needs to happen. Okay.
Yes, that's huge. That's huge. Internalized oppression. Ooh, that
Hmm.
could be a whole other conversation.
Oh, yes.
Because yeah, these systems, as we're seeing, like they're forcing us to re-examine a
Hmm.
lot of things that we
Hmm.
thought were in place, that we're
Hmm.
told, right, are supposed to be solid. It finds out like it's not true. Like we're finding
No.
out that right now. And so leaning into what we have always done throughout centuries, I think is so important. And as you said,
Hmm.
like examining yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Where do
that's
you hold these
first.
beliefs and uprooting
Right.
them? Hmm.
Yes. That's first. That's
Hmm.
first. You have to look at yourself. You have to look
Yeah.
at yourself. Yes.
Mhm. I do want to ask, as we're winding down, your hope for Black women who join this masterclass. And then if
Mhm,
someone shows up feeling maybe scared, uncertain, fearful, as we
mhm,
talked about, how you
mhm,
want them to feel by the time they leave this masterclass.
mm, mhm. My hope is that first, I want to commend anyone from come to the master class because I know that talking about money, well, for most of us, talking about money is not fun. Okay.
Mhm.
And that for most of us, it's a hurdle to come to a master class talking about money because many of us avoid talking about money. So I'm going to commend any Black woman who comes to the emergency money tips master class right there, right? And that most Black women coming to the master class are experiencing some level of fear because these are some scary times. So I would say most Black women coming to the master class are already fearful. Okay. The fear is probably going to be drastically reduced when you know that you're in a community of other Black women who are also fearful, but are also there to support you. And also, you're being poured into with not only information, but also support. And you are coming in knowing that you will be leaving with a plan, right? You'll be leaving much better off than when you left. You'll be leaving with a clear financial plan of what to do to get yourself in a more proactive place financially. Okay. So even though you might be fearful, even though you might be confused, even though you might be like, oh, I don't want to even think about this. I don't want to think about, that I lost my job. I don't want to think about this. But sis, you got to. You have to think about it because this is the reality, right? You cannot uh, ignore the reality because we have to survive. And so now we're thinking about survival issues. And so we're trying to help you so that your day to day is less anxiety provoking because now you have a plan for how you're going to deal with your bills. Because we want you to be able to deal with your bills in a way so you have less stress day to day.
I love that. I love that. Yes, and just one more time, the privacy considerations, if you don't
Yes.
mind mentioning that, because I think that's so important during these times.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as a privacy consideration, no participants nor attendees to the masterclass will be seen on camera. The masterclass will be Zoom webinar, so only Dr. Roche and I. So Dr. Roche, again, is a financial psychologist in addition to a licensed clinical psychologist like myself. And again, Zoom webinar, no attendees will be seen on camera. Dr. Roche and I will be on camera. So again, nobody will know you're there, okay? We know as Black women that we value our privacy. And then coming to the masterclass, you will be there live and you will also have the recording after.
Wonderful. Yes. Just want to read one last comment here. Hi, everyone. Hello. Yes, I agree. We need to grow our own food, build our own social media apps, and support Black owned businesses. Our businesses need to be in our own networks. We need to strategize. Yeah,
Agree,
I think that's what a lot of us are feeling, right?
agree.
Strategizing, planning.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and so the masterclass ties right into that, right? Making your
yes.
plan before, maybe before you need it, but being
Mm-hmm,
proactive about what we
mm-hmm,
all see coming,
mm-hmm.
right? Unfortunately. So yes,
Unfortunately.
I linked
Mm-hmm.
the link to register in the description section as well as in the chat if you're here live. But yes, I want to thank y'all so much for being here, for commenting everything that you've shared in the live chat. If you're watching the replay, please feel free to comment if anything resonated. Anything else to share, Dr. Kamani, before we wind down?
No, I'm just thankful to be here today. And, even though there's a lot of heaviness right now in the world, heaviness in terms of what's happening with our sisters. I just am thankful that there's opportunities for us as Black women to come together to uplift one another and support one another. That you have, allowed for me to come on your platform to talk about the masterclass. I'm thankful that Dr. Roche was, open to collaborating with me to even do this masterclass, very last minute to kind of come together and that we were able to pull our energies together and really collaborate on this. And, she was able to like hear, like the passion I have for it. And she was like, yes, girl, let's do this. Let's do this. So that really warmed my heart, that she was really on board with this too. So I hope that, we're able to really see and really as a community, as Black women, that we are able to just continue to do things. Like this is one example, but that it's Black women that we continue to do things to uplift one another in our
Mm-hmm.
communities. Small things, larger things, but we're going to have to continue to do things to uplift one another because we need to continue to do this because we are in some very challenging times.
We absolutely are.
And then we
We
take care of
absolutely
ourselves too.
take care of ourselves. Yes. Whew. It's essential, right? Self
Yes.
preservation during these times. Multifaceted me would, yes, says you help me prepare
Oh.
for retirement. I will share this info. Thank you. And I think that speaks to the level of like community, right? Knowledge sharing, resource sharing, which is going to be so essential during
Hmm.
these times. Yes, we
Absolutely.
have to get back to community. Thank you for that. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. And so, yes, y'all, thank you so much for being here. If you're here live, thank you for watching the replay. If you're watching the recording, yes, and please subscribe to Dr. Kamani's channel, Lifting as We Climb Consulting on YouTube, my channel, Marissa Price Heals. And yes, I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you so much. And please pass this information on if you know anyone who has been affected by layoffs, job loss, job cuts. Please share this masterclass with them as well. All right. Thank y'all so much. Bye, y'all. Till next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.